What's up, everybody? Dog 1985. There's levels to this. Want to have this conversation. I don't even know if this podcast is even going to be that long. Welcome to another episode of the Gamer's Perspective podcast. The question today is: do you want exclusives? Like really? Do you want exclusives? And then I guess the follow-on question is why? What is the benefit to you? Now let's walk this down logically and let's figure this out together. Self-awareness is a big thing. Self-awareness is a big tool that you can use to better your life. When you're self-aware, you can accept criticism, you can accept feedback. It'll make you a better leader, it'll make you a better person, it'll make you a better everything overall. So I'm going to try to use a little bit of self awareness, and I'm going to admit at the fact that I am not a developer. So I'm not going to speak from the developer's standpoint. I'm going to be self aware and speak from the fact that I don't own Sony or Xbox or have any stock in Sony or Xbox, and I'm not tied to their success from a monetary standpoint. Self aware about that. What I am self aware of is that I am nothing more than just somebody that consumes the gaming products that all of these gaming companies put out for the most part. I'm trying to think if there's something out there that I have not tried gaming wise this generation. Yes, VR. I don't do VR headsets, whether it's Oculus, Apple, or Sony. So that's one thing I don't do. But as a gamer, I'm going to talk about this topic from, the gamer's perspective. So let's walk this step by step. For me, I used to believe that exclusives really made a difference because it allowed a developer to focus on one console, one SKU, and therefore they could make the best product possible because they weren't focused on multiple SKUs. The problem with that logic is that I'm not a developer, so I really don't know. So unless there's a developer that's watching this that's willing to leave a comment, or maybe there's a developer that has a YouTube channel that wants to speak on it, or maybe you can point me to a developer that has spoken on this, that has clearly stated working exclusively for one console makes a better game. That's the argument, right? Because as a gamer, we care about what's the end product, how good is the game. Now, if we were to say that exclusives are games are better than regular games, then we can't say that. We know that's incorrect. We know that there's been plenty of games that have not been exclusive that have been great. And even if you want to go off of the game of the year, if I don't know how much stake you put in that, Astrobot, it's a Sony exclusive, but is it a Sony exclusive, or is it a great Sony exclusive because they only made it for the PS5, or could that team have also made Astrobot run on the Xbox Series X, the Xbox Series S, or any other console for that matter? I think that Astrobot winning Game of the Year showed that gameplay is what mattered the most overall. But again, I'm not a developer, so I don't know. Somebody will have to let us know. What I do know is that I remember during the Nintendo 64 era and the PlayStation era, where games literally looked different on each console. And not like Digital Foundry, I have to zoom in or have specific tools to be able to see the difference. No, 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 no. If you had a Nintendo 64 and you had a PlayStation, the games definitely looked different. The pixelation of the games were different. I remember Nintendo 64 had more of like a blocky style type of games, and the PlayStation had a more like the anti-alien scene was crazy, and it was more like pixelated a little bit. Even the games, the wrestling games, I remember those the most, like SmackDown versus Raw or whatever. And then playing something like WrestleMania 2000 or WrestleMania 2 No Mercy on the Nintendo 64. Like, the games literally looked different. Same thing with the Sega Dreamcast. The games literally looked different, and you can see why a developer would have to concentrate on one console versus the other. The argument, I think, becomes a little bit more blurry when you move up from that generation and then you keep moving on up. So it's almost like the consoles, again, from the gamer's perspective, I'm just speaking from our perspective, so I'm being self-aware that what I'm saying might be full of ignorance. But from what I could tell, from what I could see, if it seems like these consoles became more and more and more and more alike than unalike, to the point where even the controllers have all the same buttons. Now the buttons have different, like the X on the Xbox controller is a square on the PS5 controller or on the PlayStation controller, but the scheme of the controls are the same. Literally identical. Whereas on the Nintendo 64 and the regular PlayStation, they were not. So clearly there was a difference. Clearly you had to develop differently, so that makes sense. But I feel like the more we keep going, we're at a point where both these consoles are literally identical. Literally identical. So identical that the console that has more teraflops doesn't even matter. The console with the least teraflops can arguably sometimes run games better. One console has a faster SSD than another, and again, when you're looking at something like Digital Foundry showing the difference between loading times, it's a few seconds, if that. It's not that big of a difference. So, from my perspective as me gaming, I don't see the benefit to exclusives. None. Not a single benefit. Because I believe that a studio as talented as Insomniac, right, which I would say has been carrying the PlayStation this generation, a studio as talented as Insomniac would be able to make their games for the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. I believe that they could. I believe that they're talented enough to do that. Now, the best argument that I have seen for exclusive actually comes from my big bro, Puerto Rock 77. I saw his latest video. Shout out to him. Go watch his stuff. He said something of the lines of development time and all that other stuff. Pretty much, if a studio has to focus on developing for multiple SKUs, then that might take away resources and all that other stuff. And that sounds legit. That sounds adequate. That sounds feasible, right? I only got to develop for one SKU, so this should be easier. I should be able to do it faster. I should be able to turn out games faster because I'm doing it for just one SKU versus having to worry about multiple SKUs. Yeah, that does sound feasible. It does. However, the problem comes when the studios that aren't first party studios, the way you convince them to make games for a single platform is by paying them to do so. See, if it was truly beneficial, like I'll just think about this logically, if it was truly beneficial to only make a game for one console, because then you can make the game and optimize it for it and you don't have to worry about anything else and everything like that, why wouldn't every single developer just make games for PlayStation? Why waste time and try to make a game for a platform that has a user base of only 30 million when most of those users are also going to have a PlayStation 5 anyways? Why don't you just make it for the PlayStation 5? If it's that big of a detriment. What I believe, again, my personal belief, again, speaking just straight from ignorance because I really don't know, is that the difficulty of developing for multiple SKUs in today's day and age is not that hard. And that's why these companies are telling Sony, like, hey, if you want a game to be exclusive, you're going to have to pay us. Because it is worth it for us to put it on the other platform that has a lower user base. Regardless of what you think, it is worth it for us to put it on PC. regardless of what you think. So how about you pay us and then we won't put it on there. When you look at it from the gamer's perspective, you realize that the only companies that have exclusives by their own merit or just willing to do it by themselves are the gaming studios that have a console directly tied to them. And even Microsoft now is moving away from that. So how difficult is it really to develop for both of these boxes? I really don't think it is. Now, developing for the Nintendo Switch, I can see that, right? Because it's not as powerful of a hardware. And yeah, that I can see. So the best argument that people have for exclusives that I have seen is when they bring up older generations. And yes, that makes sense. When you bring if you have to bring up older generations, then in my opinion, you've already lost the argument. Because we're talking about today. Today, what's the point of exclusives? How does exclusive benefits the gamer today? It doesn't. I don't think it does. But at the end of the day, it's what do you want? Do you want these exclusives? I guess that's the question. Do you want these exclusives? Do you have a problem when you see a platform that has both Halo and God of War, which you could purchase both games on? Does that bother you in some way, shape, or form? Where you see exclusives next to non-exclusives. You know what I mean? Does that bother you, and what does that do for your gaming experience? Again, I believe that these studios are talented enough to be able to produce these games for both consoles, especially this generation. Now, what happens next generation, depending on what these SKUs look like, maybe, perhaps. But for this one, nah, these consoles keep getting closer and closer to each other. They are essentially PCs now that are closed, right? So we'll see. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I'm curious to see where the mentality is at. I really am. I keep praying that somebody can convince me as to why I should want exclusives, but it still hasn't happened. Oh, what's up, Jason? Sorry, I was going on a rant there, and I didn't want to mess up my train of thought. But I see you on here, Jason. I appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you. But yeah, it would be beautiful if you can purchase a piece of hardware based off of the features that the hardware has, not the software that the hardware has. Yeah, Big Bro also mentioned how if you're championing exclusivities or non-exclusivities, and you should want games to be played on the PS4, you shouldn't want last gen to be left behind. And I get it. That's a decent point, because when you're comparing it to other medias like music and movies, yeah, like everything should be. You're going to be able to watch what's it called, the Creed 3 or whatever, on a 4K TV, the same that you're going to be able to watch it on a older TV as well. Like you're gonna be able to watch it. Now the aspect ratio does change. Old TVs have different aspect ratios than new TVs, but for the most part, you should be able to watch it regardless. So it is different in that sense of a medium, because the media of gaming is determined by the hardware that we have. But I'm just saying, when you're looking at the current generation, both the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are extremely similar, and I would believe that these companies, these publishers, these developers are talented enough to be able to have games run on both consoles. But we'll see. Apparently, there's a rumor out there that PlayStation might be putting Horizon Lego on the Xbox. If that happens, man, there's people on two sides of the fence. There's people saying that the gaming industry is changing and that it's inevitable and Sony's going to follow suit. And then there's people that are saying, nope, Sony doesn't need to follow suit. Sony's doing perfectly fine. Why would they want to put their games on Xbox? I don't know. We'll see. The truth is going to lie somewhere in the middle. But that's where I'm going to leave it at, guys. I knew this wasn't going to take too long. Yeah, Jason, I appreciate you stopping by. I just was curious to see what people think, you know? Said, okay, see, Jason said I was surprised when Death Stranding came to Xbox. But you see, you were surprised because it was a Sony product. You weren't surprised because you didn't believe it could run on Xbox. See, that's the difference. Again, the argument of time and resources and everything like that, that sounds good, right? But I need a developer to tell me this. I need a developer to tell me why I want a game to be exclusively developed for one platform versus another. If it's not a developer saying it, someone that's actually developing games, then I just don't understand it. From the gamer's perspective, all it is console war ammo, right? Or a belief of superiority until the games stop doing it. You know, now where games are timed exclusives, I don't see it. But it is what it is. You know, I think the devs want as many people to be able to play something they made. I would assume that. So there's a money aspect to it too, right? The devs want to make sure they get paid, and if you got a company like Sony that's willing to give the publisher a set amount of money up front, and that goes to the developer as well, then maybe that might be worth it. You know, depends how much that money is. I don't know, but yeah, I would think so. Could you imagine if I was an artist of any sort? Oh, there you go. Yeah, like right now, right? I'm a content creator that makes content on YouTube. If YouTube was a platform that only worked on Android and Apple had its own separate video social media thing, and then there was another third party that you could broadcast or you could put your videos on both Android and whatever. I'm going to use the one that I could put on both, unless Android paid me to be exclusive on their platform, unless Apple paid me to be exclusive on their platform. But that's not a benefit to the consumer or the viewer. That's a benefit to me. And that's what I'm trying to say. Exclusives don't help the gamer. They only help the everybody else but the gamer, in my opinion, because it forces you to have to buy a separate box when these boxes are similar. Again, if you go back in time, I get it. The consoles were extremely different. I bring the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation. That makes sense. But today, I don't know. I don't know about today. I think the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are a little bit more similar than we think. And third-party developers are making amazing games on both platforms. And even the games that are doing great, like clearly, I don't think anybody would dare say that Astrobot was great just because it was on the PlayStation. Like, no, they made a fun game, had great visuals, but you can have those. There's nothing spectacular about those visuals that you don't think can't run on the Xbox Series X. The argument might be like, oh, it would have taken longer for the game to come out because you got to develop for two SKUs. Maybe, I don't know. I need a developer to tell me that. But if the game comes out, it takes a little bit longer to come out, but then you as a consumer have option as to where you want to play it, wouldn't that still be more beneficial? I think that would still be more beneficial. You're correct. There were multi-plat games back then. You're correct. That's true. But I'm gonna leave it at that. Dog 1985. There's levels to this. Yo, Jason, I appreciate you stopping by, brother. You know. Yeah. Interesting times though. The lines are definitely getting blurred. Listen, if Lego Horizon does go to Xbox, that is a Sony franchise. I don't care how you want to spin it. If you want to say that's a Lego franchise, all this other stuff, I don't care. If that goes to Xbox, then that is another Sony developed game on Xbox. We still gotta have MLB The Show, which I know people are saying, well, that's MLB that wants it. So again, what is going on? Why is MLB saying the Sony PlayStation is not enough? We want that Game Pass money. Why is Square Enix saying the same thing? Hell, why is Sony saying that PlayStation is not enough? They gotta go to PC. Something is going on, man. Something is going on. But for us as gamers, which is the only thing you should care about as a Game Perspective podcast, listen, PlayStation is not going to stop making consoles. So if you like the PlayStation console, best believe there will be a PS6. Xbox already said there's going to be another hardware, so you don't got to worry about that. There's going to be another Xbox. And if you are a gamer, regardless, if you're afraid that Xbox is going to leave or PlayStation is going to leave, the PC platform is doing extremely well as well. So everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine. Nintendo ain't going anywhere either. Nintendo is literally the king of exclusives. But you're not going to tell me. See, that's the thing, man. You're not going to tell me that the Nintendo games are great because they've perfected them running on the Switch and all this. Like no. Zelda Breath of the Wild would definitely be better at 4K 60. You're not going to tell me anything different. It's a great game, but it's going to be even better at 4K 60. But if it can run on the Switch, it can run on the Xbox Series X. It can run on the PS5. Again, the only benefit is to Nintendo that their games are exclusive to their platform. I don't see how that makes it better for us. But you might have a better argument. But I'll be honest with you, man. The only arguments that I'm going to entertain at this time are going to be from someone that actually develops games, man. Because at this point, I don't know what to believe. DarkDog1985. There's levels to this. We out. Peace. Be safe, Jason.